Originally, this would have been the last episode of the season. But it's not.
My mum is so powerful and so intelligent and so strong and made such huge sacrifices to allow me to live the life that I am living right now. I always felt a sense of responsibility to make sure that the roles I took honoured her and honoured women like her. So I didn't ever want to play sort of a dumb woman, a woman who was just, valued because of her looks or her tits and her ass or, those kind of things. I wanted to play women with substance, women with intellect, and women who weren't just the adjunct to a story, but were actually part of driving it forward.
Hello, listeners. This is Warren Wade Anderson,
Tony Sherry,
Reggie Valentin,
Mark Morosi.
Welcome to the 10th episode of Antilles. The voice of integrity and intention you just heard in the cold opening belongs to the renowned actress Naomie Harris. Naomie was born in London on September 6, 1976, to a Jamaican mother and a Trinidadian father. Her parents parted ways before she was born, and as a result, her mother became Naomie's sole custodial guardian. Her professional acting journey started on BBC's Simon and the Witch at the age of 9. Then went on until she took a break from television acting to study social and political science at Cambridge University's Pembroke College. After graduation, she went on to study at the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School. Within a couple years after completing all her academic training, she made a transition to more substantial roles. At the time of this recording, Miss Harris is best known for her roles as Eve Moneypenny in the James Bond movies Skyfall, Spectre, and No Time to Die. Others may know her for her Oscar-nominated performance as Paula in Barry Jenkins' Moonlight. I believe the best representation of her artistic and ancestry can be seen in two projects: 2019's Black and Blue and 2002's White Teeth miniseries. I was going to start our talk with a synopsis of the film, but Tony beat me to the punch with a couple questions.
Why those two? I understand Black and Blue. Right. Why White Teeth?
Well, White Teeth, I think, represents, it's sort of the most biographical piece that I've seen that she's done, because it talks about Caribbean life in England in a way that I don't think the other projects that she's done has done. Black and Blue I chose because this is the first role that she's done where she's a lead actress. While some might think that this is a B movie, I think the performances in this film are just outstanding.
Black and Blue also made history because she was a lead actress, the leading role as a woman, but it was the first time a black woman was a leading cop in a movie. That's never been done before. A leading woman being a cop.
Let me give a summary, because I think we should give a summary. I'm going to give a summary, and you guys tell me if you agree with this or not.
Okay.
I disagree.
Strongly.
Right away. So Alicia, the lead character, is forced to balance her identity as a black woman and a rookie New Orleans police officer after she witnesses two corrupt cops committing murder.
It's more than two corrupt cops, 3.
Okay. What is your sort of take on the through line of the film?
I mean, it's a powerful premise in light of the fact that it's 2019. We're in the midst of, for lack of a better term, a social upheaval with regards to police perceptions and things of that nature. It's kind of like flipping it on its head, where you see police running against the police, running from the police. It goes to show you the level of corruption within the police department. I mean, specific to this movie, we're talking about narcotics and gangs and illegal activity, but you have corruption with regards to how the police treat civilians also, which is part of what this movie is about, which is really the major social issue that we're dealing with at this point. I mean, police corruption happens whether it's black or white or whatever it is. I mean, that's something that we've seen, debated. People, get prosecuted, go to jail, whatever. I mean, corruption happens in every organization, but there's also elements of how the community responds to police in this movie too. And I think that is what makes this movie important, because it strikes a nerve. Like, people are watching this and they feel as if, okay, this is timely. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I think the interesting aspect of this movie is to see a cop having to choose her allegiance between black or blue.
So, Naomie Harris, the subject of our discussion here, she plays Alicia, and she comes back as a veteran to the New Orleans area, as I stated in the beginning, as a rookie cop, and she's sort of thrown back into the environment that she left,
right?
And she has to sort of resolve whatever things that were not resolved before she left. Let me ask you, Mark, do you think that she brought something particular to her performance?
She was getting herself familiar, or not getting herself familiar, but as the viewer and the audience of the movie, she's showing you that, listen, I have a connection with these, so-called suspects, that people that are giving trouble in the beginning of the movie, but they don't seem to be accepting me.
So, Tony, do you think that there's something both in this movie, Black and Blue, and the TV series we're going to cover, White Teeth?
Absolutely.
There's something unique in what she brings to the table?
I think so. What she brought to the table was just her personal experience, and which, I looked at a couple of her interviews, and she says that in order for her to lock into a character, she has to get lost in the character. Like, she has to no longer be Naomie, which is probably the method for many actors, but she says she gets completely lost, and I really felt that. I really felt like she embodied that character. She thought that she was that character. So I really...
The thing that made me pick this movie as opposed to, say, Moonlight, which is probably the movie that she's most well known for at this point, or the movie where people can point to and say that's the most showy performance that she's done, is that I think that what she also brought to the role was a vulnerability, because it was you sense that she had that kind of grit and like determination, but you also sense like she was vulnerable, and she wasn't hiding from that vulnerability, which I think is a very difficult thing probably for and I'm not an actor, probably for an actor to sort of portray fierceness and vulnerability all at once.
And I'll hold this question,
that's good.
That vulnerability is, I have a few cop friends, and, a lot of people say that police shouldn't police in their neighborhoods. A lot of people argue that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I disagree, because New York City was mostly, I don't know if it still is, populated by cops who
in the suburb, from the burbs.
Right, from Long Island, right?
Long Island and Staten Island.
I don't know if that worked out during the stop and frisk era.
Yeah. I mean,
because there's a distance, right?
But you need that distance, though. You can't police in your neighborhood where cats know you live.
I disagree.
Okay.
Anyone else agree with me, or?
I'm gonna say that it works. It doesn't work well when you arrest someone. I don't think that was the case here. She didn't arrest anybody in the community. She just had differences with people in the community.
I think she was too connected to what was going on, which can get you in a lot of trouble.
I mean, it did save her in terms of knowing the terrain, knowing where
to
go.
That's true.
Building alliances towards the end.
That's true.
If she was from the outside, she wouldn't know how to manipulate the situation to her advantage.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
because it's. I mean, you could say the same thing about. I mean, I'm going to blow it up to something else.
That's
like,
fine.
Really? That's what you're going to do? I didn't know that.
So, like, Americans often go to war in territories that they don't know.
That's a stretch, because I mean,
to sit in Vietnam,
that's
Afghanistan,
a stretch though.
Right?
That's a stretch though. Like, bring it back to the States.
I told you I flew it out.
And you know, I worked in the Bronx for a few years, and I wasn't from the Bronx, but I grew very accustomed to the nuances of that neighborhood and connected with the community. But I left, and there were some times where it was good that I left because I had some students that threatened, and you know, if they knew what, you know what I'm saying. So I respect
What you're talking about now is the separation, right? So you're from another area and you come in and then you leave again, right?
Yeah.
And then you talk about being from that area. But now you're talking about a third possibility, which is you do come in from another area, but you become familiar with the territory that you're in.
I got very familiar with the businesses, the people in the stores. You know, I knew people by name and all that stuff.
But the cops, the other cops
Right.
in this film, not as familiar with the neighborhood, right?
Right.
I mean, even the veteran cops didn't really understand the inner life of that neighborhood. They understood the different places that they needed to go to, right? Like even the mean cop that's played by Frank Grillo,
Yeah.
Terry Malone. He's been there a long time, but he's asking that other younger cop, where are we going? You know, like...
Yeah, that's true.
It's incentives, right? And, you know, you guys can jump in anytime, but the incentive in this particular movie where the cop who plays Kevin, Reed Scott, he's saying, we don't police that area unless a cop's in trouble. Right? So even though that character has sort of mixed emotions and kind of ambiguous as far as his alliances are concerned, we come to find out he's essentially a good guy, but he's not incentivized to know that neighborhood. And that's his neighborhood. That's the neighborhood that he's policing.
Well, so it's a systemic issue then.
Yeah.
So what Tony's talking about makes sense with regards to safety.
Yeah.
Yes. Took the words out of my mouth. But there is an incentive or there's a benefit for being from the neighborhood as far as community service.
Right.
So the problem...
It's like, for instance, if you're from that neighborhood and you know the people, you probably wouldn't have to arrest anyone.
Exactly.
That's true.
So, but
Or you probably would never have to pull out a gun.
Which should be the objective of police, to serve the community, and how the best way to serve the community is to know the community. If you're a stranger coming in, first of all, there's xenophobia there too, right? On both parts.
Yeah.
All right, and there's distrust, right, of police, and there's a demonizing of police towards the people in the community, right? Those two
Because they've been
elements don't
brutalized.
mix.
Because they've been brutalized by the police.
Right, exactly. And the best way to heal that situation is to have people who are community service minded help the community. So really, the problem is it's a systemic issue. It's an economic issue. Neither of which can be solved by individuals putting $20 in the tip jar, you know, like that scene, right?
But that scene is even deeper because it goes to what I was saying, which is
the donation jar.
Right. The character Kevin is like, I'm just taking these.
Right.
He's taking, Tyree's character is like, he wants to be in good stead with the police. So it's like, police take things for free.
Their money's no good here.
But
that's in vain, though, because right before that scene, you hear the other gentleman was talking about, dude, I called you guys 24 hours ago about a burglary. Did you guys respond? And he responds, I didn't get that. I didn't get that call. I didn't even know about it. So they're doing this to placate the police or to curry favor from the police that really isn't benefiting them in the end.
Right. Ultimately, the police they're not seeing the inhabitants of that neighborhood as human beings.
They're not.
Doesn't connect.
But I think that the problem with our society is that we don't live, like, cultures tend to be separate. We create certain enclaves and we just stay there. So, I live in New York City. My Caucasian colleague lives in New York City, but then I live in Rosedale, Queens. He lives in Oakland Gardens, Queens, or he lives in
Jackson Heights,
or Astoria, or Manhattan, whatever. So he can never understand how my community functions, and therefore, even if he were to be a New York City cop living in New York City, he's not going to patrol the same community that I'm from, or not familiar with the way people that look like me behave, and may think that someone wearing a hoodie is a suspect versus someone trying to keep warm.
Yep. And
But don't, so are you ultimately saying that regardless of whether that white cop or that white person is sensitive to you as a human being, that the incentives are there that makes it difficult for them to sort of empathize on a regular basis with your situation?
There is no incentive for them to empathize, because they only know what movies or music videos portray, right? So they don't really have friends that they can talk to, or they don't really,
or family members.
Family members, right? So it's hard for you to understand how someone. It's hard for you to understand people when you're not really familiar with their culture. Or
I understand that, and it's absolutely true. And maybe I think about things differently, but the thing that I want to say to people who don't understand where we're from and what we're doing, especially about Caribbean people making contributions to cinema, is for them to think about us as human beings. So always filter stuff and go, what I'm saying to this guy, is that something that I would say to my uncle? Is that something I would say to my mother? And if you sort of live in that kind of space,
right,
you're automatically, I think, empathetic overall, right?
I mean, that's how I think. I'm sure that's how all of us at this table thinks.
Yeah.
But you have some people who are so deep into their own space, their own culture, and their own way of thinking. They can't really process the idea that this other person who may look differently because of stereotypes isn't like them. So they have to be treated differently. So that's
and
problem.
They're not only killing the people who are getting the brunt of it, but they're robbing the people who are in power of the potential for all of us to be greater. So let's get deeper into it.
Yeah.
So the character of Alicia, played by Naomie, we know what her role is in the film. What do you think about the character of Mouse, played by Tyrese, and his relationship to her? What do you think those two characters' relationship was before she left the neighborhood and went into the military?
Well, post-military, when she's a cop, I believe that Mouse gives her perspective. It keeps her understanding that she's not blue. You know, because that's what I call the movie Black or Blue. Because honestly, a good cop is neither. A cop is a cop who should just be a cop. You shouldn't be a color. You know what I'm saying? Like cops. I'm not going to go into that. But
the movie shows that there's incentives in place for her not to be a good cop.
Yeah, but Mouse was the connection to her and the community that kept her.
Okay.
Which gave her the struggle, which gave her that was the tension.
I think the issue is the fact that out of all the careers she could have chosen, she chose to become a police officer.
Yeah.
And that is the ultimate betrayal for people in that community.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
They that scene where she was talking to her son, Misty's son, and then Misty intervened.
Jamal.
Right, Misty intervened and said, "Don't talk to her." Even though they had a past, like she didn't even acknowledge that they had a past.
Yeah,
right.
Totally ignored her.
So she completely cut her off.
Point.
Yeah.
Do you think that her time as a Caribbean, coming from Caribbean parents, living in that part?
Naomie.
Yeah, Naomie. Coming from just her experiences, what do you think she drew from that to be effective in this role? Were there some parallels that you could draw from with
Well, in
the
London,
setting.
Well, in London, as we go through the series, we're beginning to see that there are parallels of Caribbean people here in the United States. There's not much difference between Caribbean people's experience here in the United States and in London. Right. The style of the prejudice is slightly different, but it's the same result, which is basically you're not human. So I'm sure she grew up with that.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that's interesting about Naomie is I'm glad you sort of opened that door, which is, as opposed to Cicely, she benefited from those people coming first, and I think she also benefited from the other actors, because let's talk about Scrubs. If the other actors were Scrubs, I don't know if the movie would have made an impression, because it's not. Like I said, it's not. It's not Citizen Kane, right? The characters are constantly speaking in exposition. We need to get this because of blah 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 blah. Like that.
Yeah.
Whereas really sophisticated movies are kind of.
There's not much nuance in that movie.
No.
It wasn't twisty at all.
I mean, it's a cop thriller action movie. It's
It was a vibe.
Whatever,
It was
but
a vibe.
the message was well received. I think and relevant, exactly. So, but speaking on the career arc of Naomie Harris, I mean, she ran the gamut. I mean, she played the quintessential crackhead whore
in Moonlight.
in
yes.
Moonlight,
Flawlessly.
and which is, I think, a rite of passage for a lot of acts.
That's the
the
Shameful
crackhead,
truth.
the
Shameful
crackhead
truth.
role
No, you're right,
Shameful
because
has been played
even
really at critical acclaim as a black person,
Right.
And then there she is, leading role.
This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Double Bill Movies, a book club for movies. Watch 2 movies and join us to talk about it. A forum for avid and casual movie watchers to discuss how this medium shapes the way we see the world around us. Go to doublebillmovies.com for more details. Now, let's get back to the show. We took a break and moved on to the White Teeth miniseries. Adopted from Zadie Smith's book of the same name, the series is composed of 4 episodes. Episode 1, The Particular Second Marriage of Archie Jones. Episode 2, The Temptation of Samad Iqbal. Episode 3, The Trouble with Malat. And Episode 4, The Return of Majid Iqbal. For the purposes of our discussions, we only explored the first 2 episodes of the series. We believe these chapters really highlights Naomie's contributions to the ensemble production. The lives of 3 families are woven together across 3 decades in multicultural Britain. I'll add something else to that. What I saw also was the repercussions of an older generation sort of passing down to the younger generation. Do you guys think that is a kind of great summary of the series?
Oh yeah.
I'm going to start with the first one, obviously. What did you guys think of the series overall? And is there anything in particular that stuck out at you? It just sort of is still ringing in your head about it. Go ahead.
I'll start if you guys don't mind.
Yeah.
It's a cautionary tale for me.
In what way?
Your kids are gonna suffer from your lies. And and this is my caveat, right? Because I thought about this a lot, because I'm forced to think about elders when I see the actions of the people on the show. Well intended though. I don't think any of the actions came out of malice. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying?
Except for the Malfins.
Okay.
I feel like they had some selfish agendas
but I'm
there.
talking about the 2 major.
But I think even in a way they're kind of victims of the victims is not a word. They're kind of so we talk about incentives for Black and Blue. The culture has given them particular incentives to be who they are.
I'm talking about them preying on these young kids, though. The husband was throwing mad sexual vibes towards
Well, it's more than that.
Irie.
I think it's more than that.
Talking about
Her boobs, and then
But I think it's more than that.
the wife was throwing mad sexual vibes towards Melat.
She sure was. I just
Yes.
think that
Yes.
there's so much evidence of behavior that came from trauma.
Right.
And
so do me a favor before we get so deep
Yeah.
deep into it. Can you sort of, if someone hasn't seen this before, what is it about? Because I gave them a very sort of general idea.
so like what the
Because it's about three families, right? So who are the three families?
right. So you had a Brit. Well, it was an Indian family, a British family, Bangladesh,
Bangladesh family, yes.
right,
Bangladesh heritage, right,
The Muslim.
and then a British family.
a mixed family, which is a
Oh, that's true.
right. So one member is from Jamaica, Jamaican heritage, and the other one is probably Irish heritage, right?
And then you had a straight up British family, like the
Jewish descent.
Jewish. Excuse me. Yeah, there you have it. I was so honestly, guys. I was so caught up in my own experience. I just saw elders. I didn't even see ethnicity. I just saw elders lying, still being convicted by their faith or whatever they want to follow, but denying their humanity. And I think that's what a lot of us do. We want to be Christian, we want to be Jewish, we want to be Muslim, we want to be all these things, but we deny the fact that we're human beings, and then we get so guilty in our humanity. We're human beings.
So I just saw it as how history repeats itself in certain kind of ways based on maybe people's culture or their background or how they were raised, because I saw how things echoed in everyone's life and experiences, and it also showed how people mentally picked up on things that made them change their perspective, like, you know, to change your wind, and they changed their thoughts, because like, oh, wait a minute, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing, or maybe I see this vision. Like, I saw the turns in everyone where it was.
Do you think that the portrayal in the series was realistic? Is that something you could you
Oh, completely.
Okay.
And I think Tony just expressed that, how, you know, you're able to see that within yourself. And the question is, do people stay in tune with that message?
In the first episode, there are four main characters. There's Archie and Samad, who are veterans of World War II. Samad's from Bangladesh, Archie's British, and they served together in what seemed to be, it would have been India at the time, before it became Bangladesh. And so those are
East Pakistan.
Yeah, so those are World War II veterans, and then there's Clara, who was many years younger than Archie, who's a young girl who her and her mother live in kind of the projects in England, and there is and her mother is Hortense, very religious Jamaican woman.
Extreme.
The funny thing about that Clara character is, like, I can relate so much because my grandmother's name was Clara.
Oh wow!
And then there is Alsana, who will become the wife of Samad. What do you think Archie represents? Because it starts with Archie kind of trying to commit suicide in a kind of hilarious way.
Because his wife left him.
Yeah, in the car. I think he's kind of a guy who really doesn't have a
religion. And I use the word religion on purpose because his counterpart is so religious.
Yes.
And he resolves his
whatever conflicts he feels
with a flip of a coin.
That's right.
Yeah, and
Archie does, yes.
Yeah, and I think that's by design, to show how random
as a contrast to
Iqbal,
Samad.
right? Like, he tries to control everything, but it's a coin flip. Ultimately, because later on in the show, he makes a decision
I wonder
and it's
if
funny.
that
Hold
was
on, it's
intentional.
funny.
We'll get into
a
it.
coin flip is 50-50, and he has twins. He makes a decision that split them 50-50, which is hilarious to me.
Yes.
As much as you try to control these two kids, you really can't.
Yes.
You can't control what the outcome is.
That's
that's a
the
good
pickup
point.
of the night right there. That's
But
pretty good.
he has guidance, as you explained, or structure. Being that you, because in my mind I was wondering, why did you say religion? He has something to guide him through whatever he's not sure about, which is his religion. Where on the other hand, Archie does not. He doesn't know exactly what to do.
But I feel there's a better sense
ultimately-
of fulfillment
Yeah.
with Archie, whereas Iqbal is more conflicted. As much as he tries to be a good Muslim, he tries to be moral, and he tries
And
to
he keeps saying
impose
it over and over
morality
again.
towards
I am
his
a Muslim.
children. He makes
after he
he
falls.
makes immoral decisions.
I don't believe he had convictions. I don't believe he had. I think that made him. That was.
You
his
think the
coping-
religion was a kind of facade?
Not
for
a facade, but like I said before, I think that he just denies his humanity. At the end of the day, he did what he wanted to do
Right.
because he
And
wanted
he-
to do it.
and he-
There
right.
was no conflict.
Oh, he sure
Well,
did.
I think this is really about being self-righteous and judgmental, right? As much as we have
Because his character
religion,
is constantly judgmental.
right. The religion could have helped him make moral decisions, or he could have used that as a reference point for making better decisions. But he's so busy judging people and himself that he gets in his own way.
But at least he's willing to look into himself. I don't think Archie was. I don't think he took the time to look into himself. He took more time into being depressed and, dwelling in things that didn't make him
At
productive.
first, but Archie, I mean, once he figured out he could coin flip everything,
His life got happy.
He got happy. He's chill. He's chilling.
All right. So let me ask. So we were talking about Naomie. What do you think about her character and the way she portrays the
Loved
arc
it.
of her character?
Loved it.
Because I loved the thing that brought me into the film when I watched it back in 2002 for the first time is that scene where she's standing in front of the mirror, and I thought it was a sort of a what's that soul singer's name? Barry White song, but it's not a Barry White song. It's a different song. But she's sort of miming the song, that kind of enthusiasm.
Oh yeah.
And in the song, it says something, "You're a virgin of the world." In the actual song, and I think that is her character at the very beginning.
Oh yeah.
Like literally and figuratively, right?
Yep.
I think the name of that song you were looking for was Hang
Hang
On
in There, Baby.
Yeah,
Yeah.
by Johnny Bristol.
Yes. And then I think also in the beginning, in the first episode, you see something that in her character you see in a lot in Caribbean homes towards girls and the way girls are parented, which is like, you need to be pure. We need to protect you from the world, and you can't indulge with the world because the world is corrupt.
Which all came from mom. Dad was just chilling there. He wasn't eating.
Yeah.
What I find hilarious is the fortuitous event that where you found Iqbal indirectly meeting
As she's losing her virgin.
as she's losing her virginity in the
Oh
bathroom.
my God.
Which you don't realize how they're gonna have family ties.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is crazy. Like, I thought it was such a random scene until episode 3 or later on. I'm like, oh wow, okay, that's
And the boyfriend, that she's having sex with in the bathroom stall as he's trying to use the bathroom, Ryan, right?
Ryan, yeah.
I like the fact that he's the one who sort of brought her out and it's like, well, when she gives him the flyer, like it's going to be the end of the world, he's like,
Want to go for a beer?
yeah, do you want to go for a beer?
You want to go
It's
for a
like,
drink?
Sure.
Come get a drink.
Oh, let's get a drink. And she takes that beer
And she goes
down.
from 0 to 100 in like a night.
Yes.
Do you feel that Ryan, the whole arc of Ryan, spanned to like 6 seconds?
Were you surprised by his arc?
Yes, I was. He was. I think he was making noise downstairs, so she peeked over, and Mom's like, "You can't mess with boys."
Uh-huh.
Like already that small little inference in 3 seconds.
Yes.
And then fast forward, they're sleeping with each other, and then fast forward they get into the accident, and fast forward he's
It's the effect of near death. So what I take away from that scene is that
He got
near
converted.
death with two people, they're experiencing a near death experience at the same time, right? One is converted and the other one is pushed further away from So she's also converted, but in the reverse.
It's like a Mike Tyson fight. Don't go to the bathroom for that arc.
But I feel like he just had a wild life, and it was time that he was like, oh wow, I guess I need to stop.
You could go a little further. Like, so he's converted to being like a fundamentalist Christian now.
Right.
And she is sort of Christianity. Now I know it's bullshit.
Right. It's like it woke her up the second time around.
Woke her up, yeah.
So even the losing of her front teeth, you think that represents that also?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, losing the front teeth and being uninhibited completely, like that would embarrass some people to be walking around.
She was a badge of honor.
Yeah, she came down the stairs like that scene where they had that New Year's Eve party. She came down the stairs like she's God's gift to men. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And she smiled with pride. Like, most people would purse their lips, be like, you wouldn't even know that she's missing teeth. But she flaunted it, and she was liberated.
Yes.
From fear.
You know, you bringing up
From
a bigger
from
point.
low self-esteem and from all these things that the fundamentalism of her religion and her background forced her to like.
Yeah, when she ran out that window to
forced
look
her to live in
around.
bondage and emotional bondage and losing her teeth, and she also lost her religion at the same time.
So her future husband, Archie, had a near-death experience there, right?
Right.
And it was the same song that was playing on the radio
Exactly.
when he was trying to commit the suicide.
I noticed that too. Right.
So, what do you think that his arc was? Because he was going to, he thought his life was over because his first wife, left.
But I think Archie had an up and down kind of arc.
He had a waves.
He had waves. He didn't have an arc. He had waves.
Right.
I don't think his arc really changed. I think he's the same person. I don't think I think his arc was not in short waves, as you mentioned. I think it was just
because he went from being married, then his wife left him, and then he was gonna kill himself, and then that didn't happen, and then he was down, and then he found the girl,
right,
and that was great. I just felt like it was up and down, and then like other things were revealed. I don't know. I just felt like it was.
But I think he remained the same person. It's just that
okay. That's fair enough.
He found a new way of dealing with adversity, regardless of his environment. He never really reverted back to being depressed, suicidal Archie.
No.
So I think
because after that character came Mo, but the halal meat guy, and was like, "You stupid guy, why are you commit suicide in my parking lot?" He was sort of elated, like he didn't die. Like this must be a sign, probably. Right. He thought of it, so he just walked into some random house, and he met Clara. Right. So I think whatever adversity he was feeling, he was on a high after that event, and I think she kept him pretty regulated because of her being unafraid.
Right.
But I feel like Samad...
That marriage worked, though, I feel like. It
did.
It worked.
It worked because of her.
But I think it mirrored also the author, Zadie Smith.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely.
Because Zadie Smith's father was also sort of English-Irish, and her mother was Jamaican.
Yes. But
actually, it's funny because her and Naomie... They both went to Cambridge.
Really?
I think Zadie's probably a couple years older than her. So and they have that similar sort of Jamaican sort of connection. So I don't know if the director chose Naomie knowing that she had that Jamaican connection in the same way that Zadie had that Jamaican connection.
It was probably just meant to be.
So let me get into Samad, because I think he's one of the great characters here.
Hilarious.
Him being judgmental of his cousin, the restaurants.
Yo, that whole
Curry Heaven.
First of all, their mustaches were hilarious.
Big up to the costume artist.
Oh my god.
Being they're both sort of in contempt of each other. Like, I have to deal with you because you're family, but I don't like you. And
that cousin, he wasn't cool, bro. He wasn't.
Nah, Samad wasn't cool either.
That's true.
But he was so annoyed by Samad's grandstanding, and that he treated him in a way that would aim to humble Samad. But Samad is such a headstrong person; he'll find a way to give himself props any chance he can.
I remember the scene where he goes, when he's tasting the food and he goes, "Oh, it's a little too much coconut."
At the wedding.
You saw everyone's face change.
Everyone's like, "Oh."
Oh, and he also mentioned about, I guess it's too late to change the decoration or to do anything with the decorations.
Yeah.
That was funny.
So the last character is Alsana, who becomes Samad's wife. Arranged marriage.
She was betrothed to him in 1946, but she
Yes.
wasn't born until 1955.
That's hilarious.
Yes.
But that's what happens in arranged marriage.
Yuck.
He's a baby.
What do you think? Because I think that first scene where she speaks, you're like, that's the character. Mm-hmm. Like, she yells at the neighbor.
Because when you first see her, she's like almost
demure,
and like almost like the woman in Coming to America, whatever you like. I thought it was gonna be that kind of vibe, and it was like, oh, it was something different. Mm-hmm. I think he was kind of he liked that a little bit.
No, I don't think
At least Archie did. I think Archie did.
You don't think he liked?
I
Oh,
don't
maybe
think
Archie
Samad
did. Maybe
Yeah,
Archie did.
he didn't like that.
He didn't like. He wanted her to be more submissive.
Yeah.
She still was. I mean, even though she was a foul, I mean, she cursed a lot in that movie, but I think she still was pretty submissive. She could have left.
I think
she could have left him.
True. That's true.
That's absolutely true. But she was just loud. Tony and I were speaking before we started about. I think that this series is sort of magical in the kinds of actors that are in here, like
James McAvoy.
James McAvoy. Everyone knows now as Professor
Russell Brand.
Xavier.
Right.
I was
Russell
just gonna say
Brand.
that. When I saw him, I was like, "Oh snap!" Yeah.
And I think these are probably their breakout roles, along with Naomi.
It's like seeing Cuba Gooding on that barber seat coming to America.
Yeah, right. That was interesting.
So second episode,
Yeah.
The Temptation of Samad Iqbal, which I call, my subtitle is Identity, Purpose, and Hypocrisy. Right? What do you guys think about that episode? Because I think it's the episode that's the most fun.
I felt like this episode, kind of described with the question you asked earlier about the purpose, or what was like the purpose of this series of White Teeth, where it talked about how things in the past kind of patterns out to the future and stuff like that. Because then it starts out. First of all, shout out to the people who picked out the music for these episodes. They did a really
Incredible.
good job. Right, they did a really good job. I enjoyed it. I'm gonna get to
Because
that.
the music is like another character.
Yes, it is. Where it starts off with
Barud Khan, yes.
the guy who was getting not executed, but he was being hung.
Yes.
Grandfather of Samad, I believe it was,
Yes,
right?
Samad, yeah.
And so when he talked about how the British betrayed and how they were like, foolish into the things that they were doing, and
that is a real person.
Right.
Yeah.
But what made it really interesting is, of course, when they went into the music after he was being hung, and then go right into Samad, and I'm not going to talk about the scene, but I enjoyed this episode.
The connection.
Of what the purpose of this series is telling in terms of a message, and talking about how it took things from the past and how it goes on to the present time and going into the future.
But also, I think you're going to see follow through with Clara's side of the family too, which is the sort of the long-term effects of colonialism too.
Right.
But it shows how everyone's affected, is my point, right?
Well, they're subjugated in their own land, and then they come to Britain, they're subjugated again. This is where Samad begins to realize, like, I am smart, but I can't get employed. I need to go work as a waiter at my cousin who I despise. I don't like his taste, but I have to work for him because I got to support my family.
10 years.
Oh, also we forgot to mention in the first episode, the two women, Clara and Alsana, expecting twins. And Clara expecting having the girl. Is there anything else, guys, that you in this particular second episode that rung in your mind? All right, so let me get into it then, because you're going to bring it up.
Okay.
Miss Poppy Burt Jones.
Yeah.
You just open up a can of worms, brother.
The character who is the teacher of Samad's sons, Milat and Majid. Yes, but go ahead.
So he wasn't happy with his wife. His wife was cute too. He wasn't happy with his wife.
They
and was that implied that there wasn't a connection there?
I think they were talking about, or they were trying to establish the issue of him not being able to really be intimate with his wife because of conflicting work schedules, or maybe you get the impression that maybe.
But there's work schedules, but there was her expectation of what her husband would be.
Right.
And he's not that.
Right.
So it just wouldn't work out.
Right. So I think she was avoiding him.
Yes.
Yeah. So he fell weak to temptation.
But as sort of aggressive and boisterous as she is, you're right. She still was a housewife.
Right.
Yes, she was.
And then enters Miss Poppy Burt Jones, who is the liberal teacher.
I mean, listen, I don't condone that activity, but if you're gonna do that activity, pick another girl. She was nuts from the jump. You had to know, bro. You had to know this.
And the way that this Samad character would describe it to Archie. Well, Archie, I'm having an adulterous affair.
Yes.
I'm conducting an.
He was. I think he was.
affair.
I personally, in that scene, I felt he was bragging. I felt like he was bragging a little bit. I think he was proud of that. I don't think he was
bragging.
conflicted.
But what do you think, Reginald? Do you think he was also conflicted and he just wanted to hear something from someone else?
I think that there's an element to that too. Yeah.
I don't know. Being someone who's spiritual, I don't buy it, because I've been that same person where you know what you're not supposed to do, but you do it, and then you feel all bad after you do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, were you really gonna not? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I don't know. What was that? What was he saying? What was that phrase he was saying?
I'm not a Muslim. I'm a Muslim.
No. Something about pure. Yeah.
If a man is pure, his
whatever
actions
are pure. Yeah.
Whatever.
I'm gonna start telling you, baby, I'm pure. So I'm gonna start using that.
My actions are pure.
He was my favorite character, man. He's my favorite character.
What do you think the Burt Jones character represents? She's introduced as he's walking to the school for the parent-teacher conference.
Yeah. She kind of represents some form of exploitation. Want to dabble in the exotic.
She's
aspect of Indian culture, which has always been the
or as you described it in the Delroy interview. White people want to have what? Want to use minorities for sex and fun.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I think the way I termed it was exploiting black people for sport and sex.
Sport and sex.
Yeah,
that's better.
If I
better stated.
recall,
Yes, that's better stated.
And land.
And land. Yeah.
Hey, why not?
Land is important.
Yeah. Right.
That's an appropriate addition.
Okay, let's do a wrap up. With over 14 television programs and 32 feature films on her CV, Ms. Harris is firmly ensconced in the elite continuum of both mediums. She's one of the few actors that seamlessly moves between independent films and established entities like the BBC, James Bond, Pirates of the Caribbean, or even the Marvel Universe. Without knowledge of her biography, one could chalk up her fortune to luck. But it's not luck. Whether it's the fact that her mom is a screenwriter, or her father is a high-end fashion designer, or her childhood training at the Anna Scher Theater, the foundation of her career was established even before she was a fully formed person. We're sure that her best roles are yet to come. This episode was produced and moderated by Tony Sherry, Reginald Valentine, Mark Barozzi, and Warren Wade Anderson. The audio clips of Ms. Harris throughout this episode were taken from Bell Staff's The Road Less Traveled podcast, hosted by Reggie Yates. Join us next week for the last episode of this season, a discussion on Letitia Wright's contribution to cinema. Thank you for spending time with Antilles.